got my client's website,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at it now, and it could definitely use my help.
See, that's what I'm saying. And it's just like it's so much stuff like that you don't even consider. You know what I mean? Like until you actually start really researching it, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's something.
Yeah, they do have. Yeah. Okay, they have a full list of all their services they do.
And that's one of the, as a UX designer, that's the first thing you do. The first thing you do is always go to the client site.
Mhm.
That should always be the first thing you do.
It's ugly.
See? That's a good observation. Okay, so let me go back to sharing. I have so many windows open. Let me try to let me close some of this stuff. I'm sorry. Because it's like what I keep getting lost. I'll have like 20 windows open.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I'll share again. Okay, can you see my screen now? Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what usability testing methods and research techniques, we talked about that, will you be using? So part three, what are the communication channels and tools that will be used to collaborate with team members and stakeholders? That's more so like, okay, on a small business, one on like a small business, independent business owner, the communication channels. So you're the team member. So the developer, the UX designers, the scrum masters, the BAs, those are the team members who are working on the project. And then the stakeholders, like who remembers what the stakeholders are? Who the
The
stakeholders are.
the owners and the heads of the companies.
Yeah, the owners and the owners and the people in the company who own whatever product, service, or feature that you're working on. And to be clear, it may not even necessarily be the owner of the company. So say, for example, um, Jeff Bezos may not necessarily be the person who owns um who owns adding a new feature to Amazon. So let's say Amazon wants to add I don't know, their drone feature, which so they want you to be able to say, I want a drone. They want you to be able to go to the site and say, I want a drone to deliver it or I want a person to deliver it. Maybe a person named Kim, and Kim is in charge of overseeing that. So Kim, even though Jeff Bezos may be the owner of the company, Kim is the owner of that product that you're working on, that feature. So she would be the stakeholder. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I clearly communicated that. So when they talk about the communication channels, what the question is, how is the team talking back and forth to each other, and then how is the team communicating with the stakeholder? So is that through chat? Is that through Teams? Is that through Slack? Is that through, so your company is going to have a way that they communicate with each other. Teams is very common. It's like just it's a chat. I call it a chat communication messaging platform where I can just, send you messages back and forth. And only people within the company can see the text messages or the messages that are going back and forth. That could be a channel. For small business owners, sometimes you may want to set up something like, do you guys know what Slack is?
No.
Sometimes you may want to set up something like Slack. Slack is just a communication tool where you can have group chat. It's kind of just like a group chat tool. You think of it as like group chat where everybody comes into one place and leaves each other messages or video chat with each other. But you can always go back and you can see the history in a thread. So
You
that's
said
all they're asking. Like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's called Slack, SLAC. Okay.
Slack. Yep. Slack is a tool, but most companies use Teams. Teams is a communication tool and people talk back and forth and message each other. Hopefully, some people just may communicate through email. Like I'll email you messages back and forth. Sometimes you may actually talk on the phone with each other. Is it Zoom? Like some people may use Zoom to constantly talk back and forth, but that's not common. What's common is it's either going to be something like Slack or it's going to be Teams where everybody in the team is in on the chat and then you kind of log in and you talk back and forth and keep each other updated on what's going on. And yeah, Azure DevOps is something that you'll see. We'll talk about that way later. But basically, Azure is when you get assigned, and this is an agile environment, so we'll talk about what an agile environment is. But if a company is quote unquote agile, all of the projects are managed through something like Azure, so to speak. And basically, you kind of have these digital sticky tabs, and the tabs are what are you working on today? Are you finished? Do you want someone to review it? And you kind of check it off. So everyone in the company can kind of look at one time and see what you're working on. Let me see if I can pull up a visual representation of it. Let me see. Um, Azure, what would I call it? Azure Project Management Tool. Let me see if they have an example. I wonder, can I do like a screenshot? Let me see. These people are like in competition, so they may have a. Oh, things like Monday. Monday is another one. Have you guys ever seen advertisement for Monday and didn't know what
Mm-mm.
it was? Okay. Azure
The
board.
movie?
No. It's a project management software. How would I get a screenshot? Azure project management board screenshot. Mm. Yeah, it looks like this. This is exactly what it looks like. So when you and so like a lot of companies use Azure and they use we call it boards. Let me try to zoom in. See, you see how they have columns and it says new, active, resolved, and closed. So what'll happen is like everybody can see this board. It's like you log in and everybody can see this board. And you say, for example, if for example, you, Janella, you're working on adding, let's say you're working on adding a form to request a service. This will say form to request service. As soon as you start working on it, you would drag this tab from new to active. So everybody on the team knows that Janella is working on designing the form to request a service. Then after you finish working on it, this may say review. And then you would drag it over and it would say review, and somebody else is going to come and look at it. And then when you finish it, you move it over to close. This is a communication tool. This is like
Mm.
specifically like what they're talking about. This is what you see in corporate when you actually get
Yes.
into that
Oh
environment.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. So everybody can see what you're working on. That's what this question is referring to when they say what communication channels and tools will be used to collaborate with team members and stakeholders. So when I'm working on a
What?
project, yeah, when I'm working on a project, everything that I do is visible. And that's for everybody in the team. So the stakeholders, when they want to see, like a lot of people, that I work on projects for, I've never seen them, but they always have their eyeballs on what me and my team are doing. So they'll just pop in, they'll look at the board and they'll see like where the progress of the project is, and then they'll pop out and you never know they looked. Sometimes they'll pop in and they'll look if they see something. Another thing about Scrum and Agile is that companies work in 2 week, call it 2 week sprints. You see how it says the Scrum process right here?
Mhm.
So Scrum, the most popular Scrum process is 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, you should be rolling out something new. or completing a task. So I was just saying all that to say that when you guys work together, the idea you should all of these have to go from here to done within 2 weeks. So you got a 2 week period to go from new to done when you pick up a task. When
Mm.
it starts to go past 2 weeks, then you'll start to hear from the stakeholders, hey, what's going on? What's the holdup? Is there anything that we can help you with? Blah, blah, blah. But we'll talk about that later. But I just wanted to give clarity to what that question was. That's usually not a you thing. Now you can have there's like free tools like Slack and I don't think Monday is free, but a lot of independents use Monday. You can use different tools like that so that you can communicate with your clients and your clients can look at the board and see what's going on. But typically you really wouldn't give that level of access to the clients because that could be a headache. But in a corporate environment, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's cool. What are the user personas and profiles that represent the target audience, and what are their motivations and goals? That question is very tightly coupled with number one, who are the target users? But it just narrows down. So you know how you had the answer and you said they were age 49 and up and women?
Mm-hmm.
When you start profiling people, that's when you really get into like the what am I trying to say? The nuances of their behaviors. When we were talking about, remember we broke this part down when we were saying their behavior and where do they hang out online and where do they shop and what are
Right.
they interested in. That's when you get into building the profile of the target,
Oh.
the persona. So what are the personas and profiles? And you start making up stuff like it's well, they're probably coming because they're frustrated and they're probably angry that they got to spend money on this lawn service. I mean, you you can go like really far in terms of jumping into the psyche of the person when you're trying to create these user experiences, depending on what the product is. What are the primary user journeys and pathways? So when we look here at FedEx, let me refresh this so it's not ours. What can be? What do you think are the primary journeys or the most popular journeys that people take when they visit FedEx website? What would you guess, Janetta?
Tracking.
Tracking. What would you guess, Angela?
Was definitely tracking.
Yeah, so that's what they're asking. They're like, what do you think? Which if you're designing this web app, you're designing this website, but what are the primary journeys and pathways? What do you think is going to be the most popular paths, the paths most beaten on this website? What are the pain points and friction points that users may encounter during interactions with the product? For you, Janella, you have a point of reference because when you went through the site and you said, this site is terrible, it needs my help.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is, I see a lot of pain points and friction on this site.
Okay.
So you would go through the site and you would list everything that you perceive to be a pain point and a friction point.
Okay.
What are the, and for well, Angela, you don't have anything developed yet. So what would happen for you is you would come up with a design that you think is the best, and then you will start to gather information as you roll out and start testing your prototypes.
Okay.
Then you'll have an answer in terms of what are the friction points when you observe people interacting with what you design. What are the touch points and interactions that users have with the product across different channels? Have you guys ever been in a situation where you have the mobile experience is different than a desktop experience?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Too
So,
much.
yeah. So thinking when I was saying earlier that you have to design for,
Both of them simultaneously.
yes. I forgot to start recording, but the live part was recorded. Yeah. So yeah, you have to think about both things. And then sometimes it's deliberate. Sometimes product owners or stakeholders, they want to force people to use the app. So they make it so that you can't. That's a very, okay. Goodness, I was searching for an example. I finally got an example. When we went back up to here and we were talking about business requirements, and I couldn't come up with a good example, that would be a good example of a business requirement that may restrain your design. or put constraints on your design. So in some scenarios, the business requirement is we really want people to use the app. We want to move them away from the site. So don't let them do everything on the site that they can do on the app to try to push them into the app. That would be a business requirement that would kind of put a constraint on how you design the big screen experience versus the mobile experience. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. What was
Mhm.
the primary joint, pain joints, touch points?
No,
What
I'm
are
not sure that made sense to me.
okay? So which part?
Any of what you just said that would go under number 8 as a business requirement and constraint. So if the stakeholder is intentionally trying to deter traffic from the website and push it towards the app, that would be a restraint for me.
That would be something that may restrain the way you can design the desktop experience. So
Okay.
like say say for example, let's say your product owner, they say, we want everyone to accept, we want all of our drivers, or we want all of our, landscape professionals, we want them to accept a request on their phone. We do not want them to accept it on the website because we want to make sure that when they accept it, it's on their phone and they have their phone with them, right? So when you're designing the big screen version of it, that option to accept a job, it may not be a drop down. So like when say like one of their workers, so let's just say one of their drivers log in, and when the driver logs in on their laptop, they cannot accept the job. So that option is not even on the laptop. But when they log in on their phone, they can accept a job.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's kind of putting a constraint on how you can design the desktop version versus
Yeah.
the mobile version.
Okay. Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. What are the emotional responses and feelings that we want users to experience? So what do you think? You want the users to feel like what, Angela, when it comes to book for wholeness and wellness?
I want them to feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
I would want them to feel like ease, not
Mm-hmm.
like stressed out because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then um also having them just, having it real quick. I want it to be convenient. So quick and simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very good points. So when you're designing, that's going to definitely dictate the choices that you make in terms of how much do they see at one time. Here, the reason that they did this, like imagine if all of these were open at the same time, that would feel overwhelming, right? Or if this was a chart about you and it was like 100 questions about your weight, your family history, your family medical history, how much you used to weigh in high school, how much you weigh now, every single, like if all of that was visible at one time for you to book a consultation, that
I
would
would
be,
not book.
that's it. Yeah. So that's what you're talking about. Yeah, good example. Let me see. What are the opportunities for innovation and differentiation that can be explored through the design? Like, what's something that no one else is doing? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, what's something that you could do for your client or for this product or service that's going to give you a competitive edge in terms of the user is going to come and be like, oh, I love this site because it's so easy to book an appointment, or I love that they have, what's something innovative that you can implement? And then the last question is, what are the long-term goals and visions for the product, and how can the design support the growth? So when you're talking to the stakeholder, I think it's easy to say, or it's safe to say, the end goal is they want as many clients and to be as profitable as possible. So how
Mhm.
can a design, promote people loving the site so much so they come back and they order more and they book more and they book more services because it's just a great experience.
Right.
Now, having said all of that, this is what we're gonna do. We're moving into what I'm gonna call what I call a lab, but I do want to say I was thinking about something when we went on break, and I think this is a perfect segue into that. Let me share my screen. Let me pull this back up. So, user experience, when you take your quiz, when you take your certification exam, for the most part, the user experience is how a person, the user, feels about interacting with or experiencing a product. That is user experience. And a product being a service or a feature, it could be a video game controller, a site, application, a smartwatch. But the user experience is how the person, the user, feels about interacting with or experiencing a product. I noticed that listening to the answers to your questions, I'm so excited that you guys got people who did not understand what user experience is, because that's going to sharpen you guys up. You got to go back to them. Some of the questions, you guys got to go back and you have to take control of the conversation and you have to keep them focused. One thing that will help you keep them focused and help keep you focused is this. Every question and answer, if it is not serving one of these three purposes, either you are off task or the person is answering the question off task. The goal of every question is to define the product or service. The answer to every question needs to help you get clarity on what is your product, what is your service. The second thing, every question and every answer has to feed into how to make the experience as easy and as enjoyable as possible for everyone. That is the goal of every question. It's really one of those two things when you're doing the research. And then the stuff for you, this is kind of like an internal question that goes amongst you and your team, the feasibility of the implementation. That's kind of like a you thing, right? So that's not necessarily a question that you're having during the research phase, but that's a question that you and the team are talking about. So when we look back at these questions, they either fall under one category, either they're falling under the category of is defining the product or service, or is defining how to make the experience of acquiring that product and service as easy and as enjoyable as possible for everyone. That's it. If it's not answering one of those two, it's not the right answer or it's not the right question. So rapid fire, going back over these questions, real rapid fire, you guys tell me, which is real quick, which is it defining a product or is it defining a product or so say defining the product or service, or say defining how to make it easier for the client. So this first question, the target users or audience for this product, which category is that falling under? It's defining the product.
So defining the product or service or making it making it more user friendly are the two options, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making it more user friendly.
Yeah, defining and how does knowing the target user make it more user friendly? Because you know how to design for who you're targeting for, right?
Exactly.
The primary goals and objectives of the project. Which one are?
Right.
Yeah, specific user needs and pain points.
The user.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. Existing solutions or competitors in the market.
Product.
Yeah. Features and functionalities that the product must have.
Product.
User.
That can go both ways. I would accept both answers for that, because the features and the functionality is definitely, like you got to know, a clear definition of the product, but I'll accept user too, because it's just like, what are they coming there to do?
Exactly.
Platforms and devices that will be used. Is that usability or? Is that
The user, right?
so why do you need to really have a clear understanding of the devices that will be used? Is that to help you make sure that it's usable, or is that to help you define the product?
Oh, it's to make sure it's usable.
Right. The technical constraints and limitations, is that to make sure it's usable or to define the product or the feasibility?
Feasibility.
Yeah. Business requirements and constraints that may impact your design. Is that impacting usability, the user, or feasibility?
Usability.
Or feasibility?
Oh, feasibility.
Feasibility, like, is it feasible for me to pull this
Mhm.
off? Performance indicators. How am I going to measure if this is being effective? Is that directly impacting the experience, the product, or feasibility? How am I going to measure if this is being successful? The answer to that question impacts what?
Well, that's the user.
Yeah. The timeline and the budget. Is that feasibility, the user, or the product?
That's the product.
Yep. Wait, hold on. The timeline and the budget. Is that feasibility, the way the user is going to experience it, or defining the product?
Well, that's feasibility.
Yep. Stakeholders and decision makers involved in the product, and what are their expectations? Is that defining the product, how user friendly it is, or feasibility?
Feasibility.
Right. You see what I'm saying? So now when you guys ask those questions, if somebody's giving you an answer and that answer is not falling under feasibility, is not falling under usability, is, well, actually not feasibility, because they don't have anything to do with that. That's a you thing. But if the question is not falling under, if it's not helping you to clearly define their product, and the answer is not helping you to clearly define how or identify how to make it a pleasant experience, is not the right question or is not the right answer. Does that make sense? So what I really, at this point, because everything needs to be clear. This point, go back over those questions. So even though they may not have given you the right answer, you guys know the answer. So and that's good, because you can, so moving into lab, this is what I want you guys to do for the next hour, actually. And then we're gonna come back. We're gonna do this for an hour. Then we're gonna come back for like 2 minutes, and then go on lunch for an hour, and then come back and go over what you found. But this is what we're about to do. So you, Angela, are going to research 3 health and wellness websites. You're gonna research 3. And you're gonna go through their website, and you're gonna go through the process of signing up for a service. Let me write this down on the document so that it's shareable. I wonder, do I want to, what am I trying to do, y'all? Trying to add a page. Go back. Uh-oh. That's not what I'm trying to do. Okay, that gave me what I wanted. Okay, so look, this is the thing. So for you, for Angela, like, why is it, I want to be on this page. Oh, because, okay. No, it's driving me crazy. Hold on, I know what I'm trying to do, but I got page breaks everywhere. Hold on, let me just do it the long old-fashioned way that you ain't supposed to. Okay, that's good enough. All right, so for Angela, you want to research, both of you guys are going to research 3 competitors. So for you, it's going to be 3 fitness and wellness companies, and for you, it's going to be 3 landscaping services. But specifically, you are going to go through the task of booking a service, get a quote, contact someone for help, book a service, get a quote. No, you want to book a service, get a quote. What's the third one that'll be good? Book a service, get a quote, and you want to book a service, get a quote, and you want to look at testimonials, look at reviews. Book a service, get a quote, look at testimonials, reviews. And then
don't really book a service, just go through the motions.
Go through the workflow, like go through the actual workflow. And you want to identify the strengths and weaknesses of each thing. So you want to identify things that you like that I like things that they did well. And then I need you to make a list of pain points. Identify what their brand colors are to the best of your knowledge. Like you don't know how to do it the way I did it, but you can tell me for the most part what their brand colors are. And then list any brand choices you notice. Right? And then we're going to come back and talk about those. And then ideas you would like to implement in your design. So this really is not even an Angela thing. This is for all of you. So from 11:30 to 12:30, find 3 competitors and go through their site, go through the workflow. Book a service, get a quote. And if there's something else that you think is relevant, that a workflow, you can add that.
Question. Can you give more clarification on list brand choices?
And I'm using all of these terms on purpose because when you interview, they're going to either say user flow, workflow, or path. Now, you said brand choices that you noticed. When we were going through FedEx, do you remember any other stuff that I said about their brand choices? Do you remember?
No, I remember you said the colors and then the accent color.
So brand choices are everything from the colors they choose to the font
Oh,
they
yeah, the
choose
font.
to the font sizes to the buttons, the styles of the buttons. Like every design nuance is a brand choice. So I just want to kind of gauge your eye and you tell me what you notice in terms of brand choices, design choices that they made. You can just bullet point them. And actually, I think I'm gonna copy this so that you guys can fill it out and we can look at it together. So you can actually type on this document. I already shared it with you from last week. So this will be yours. This will be lawn service. And then you can just actually type on this so that we can all see it together.
Okay.
Do you still have access? Do you need me to shoot
No,
you the
I have
link
it.
or you still have it? Angie, do you still have it?
Yeah.
Angie? Okay. And this will be health and wellness. The reason I'm doing this is because this is what you're going to do when you get hired. exactly what you're going to do when you get hired. So to give you guys like a talking point, I got 2 minutes before it's 11:30. So, like I was telling you guys before, our company, we decided to offer a new product and service. And remember, I told you guys we went to like State Farm's website, we went to Progressive's website, we went to Farmer's website. This is what we did. We went to their website and we noted everything that we liked, everything that we didn't like. We noted how easy it was for us to go through the flow and go through the process. And then we all had a meeting. So all the designers came together and then we looked at we went to each one of the websites and we talked through it. And then we made a list of the stuff we wanted to adopt in our own design. And then we all went back in our separate ways. We implemented it, our rendition of it. And then we came back together and we looked at everybody's design and we picked and chose. So it ends up being a collage of a collective, right? So that's why I want you to do it, because I don't want you to get hired and it's the first time you do it. So we're going to do it for real so that when you get hired, you've already done it 3 or 4 times. So yeah, so this is going to be the lawn service one, and this is going to be the health and wellness one. It is 11:30, 11:29. Then I'm gonna come back at 12:30 and see what y'all came up with. So yeah, make sure you list the sites the 3 competitors, list the sites under here, copy and paste it here, and then go through. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We will review in an hour.
All right.